features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
We are out on foot on a vast African plain, enjoying all sorts of wonders that is wildlife. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live, you are live.
A very good afternoon to all of you and welcome on our Sunset Safari, where we are coming to you from an amazing place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. And a special warm welcome to the schools joining us this afternoon. So to Centerville, to Forest View and to Kempsville Elementary Schools. I hope you kids are all super excited to be back out. I think some of you might actually have been out with us on a safari before. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Sebastian is on camera with me. Sebastian is shy, like all of our cameramen, so you don't really see much of Sebastian at all, but you might hear his voice. There's his voice. He's saying hello. For our regular viewers, send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and let's see what amazing things we have in store for you this afternoon. It's a little bit gusty out here. For all of our kids joining us, when it's windy like this, a lot of the animals get really, really nervous. And the reason for that is because they rely on their sense of hearing and their sense of smell. So when it's windy, there's lots of rustling of the trees, lots of rustling of the grasses. They can't smell as well as they usually do. And as a result, it makes them quite nervous because they don't know if something's trying to sneak up on them. So they tend to be a little bit more on edge, which means for us, being on foot, we have to be extra specially careful and make sure that we're using these and these to keep an eye on what's going on and to make sure we don't get surprised by any big animals. But being on foot is one of the best ways to experience wildlife because it gets you away from the noise of the vehicle. Not that the vehicle's not amazing, but it gets you away from the noise of the vehicle, and it allows you to get closer to some of the smaller things as well that you wouldn't actually see if you're just driving around. So that's why we do bushwalk. But then, of course, we can't get as close to the animals on foot because they're more scared of us when we're on foot than they are from a vehicle. So for that reason, we have to be extra specially careful, but we also have a vehicle out, or a couple of vehicles out, and they're able to get you to the nice close views of the different animals. So, without any further ado, we're going to carry on along here and to see what small things we can find. Maybe we'll find a spider, maybe we will find a bug, maybe we will find a dwarf mongoose. Who knows what we have planned? I wonder whether or not James has got a plan for this afternoon.
Hello everybody, especially to you. It's from Centerville, Kempsville and Forest View Elementary Schools all the way in the United States and in Virginia to be more specific. My name is James Hendry and I'm going to be driving and James is going to be walking as you've seen, and eventually we'll be lions this afternoon. That's what my plan is. So you can ask any questions and you can just ask your teacher those questions and somehow they will end up in my ear, which is amazing. Now we have already got three very special kinds of animals right here. That's very special. The first one is a magnificent waterbuck bull over there. Look at his horns. He is a magnificent fellow. There he is. And he's got enormous big, what we call rapier-shaped horns. And they're called rapier-shaped because they're that curved shape. And of course they use them to fight each other, the bulls. They don't like each other very much when it comes to looking after the water around which they live. And they're very territorial. which means that they will protect the area that they live in, and they will try and protect the cows or females in what we call their harem. And a harem is like, well, it's like he's got lots of wives. But this chap's very relaxed. He's not fighting with anyone at the moment. He's a magnificent fellow. And then I did see two other species of animal. Let me just sneak slightly forward. We have Fergus on camera today. He's the one bringing you all the beautiful pictures that you're showing us there. Now there we have some impala, and we also have some nyala. Impala and nyala. Now the impala are the sort of chestnut brown ones there with the little horns, and that's a nyala there. That's a young bull nyala. Isn't he magnificent? He's my favourite kind of antelope out here. There, he's a browser. You can see he's showing you that he eats the leaves off trees. He doesn't eat a great deal of grass. They will sometimes eat grass, but mainly it's the leaves off trees. And that's not always very easy for animals to eat, because they contain a lot of substances that make them taste pretty horrible, really. And if you've ever, I don't know, the last time you picked a leaf off a tree and tried to eat it, I'm sure you will have noticed that it doesn't taste so good. And then we can look at the impala, which are very special indeed. And just in case this other special animal escapes, or runs away, not escapes, I'm going to ask Fergus to quickly swing his lens across way in the distance. Brilliant. Look at that. And there's a zebra. It's very special. Good, so we've got 4 different species around here. We've got the zebra, the impala and the nyala, and let's go back to the waterbuck so that we can answer Delaney's question about whether or not those horns are spiky and sharp. They're very spiky and sharp, and you would imagine that they could do some real bad damage to somebody or to another waterbuck who they were having a fight with, or maybe even a lion who was trying to attack them. But you can imagine there must be some damage done there. Isn't that special? He's shaking his ears because there are flies all over the place at the moment. Because it's a nice warm day. We're probably sitting at round about 78 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. And so it's a very pleasant day, even though we've gone into winter time. We don't have very bad winters here. We have very pleasant winters. I'm told that it's actually 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That's interesting. Must feel a bit cooler because there's a breeze blowing through. Now, Kendra, you ask a very good question, because I've told you that the waterbuck uses those horns for fighting, and you say, do these impala fight with each other? These ones don't, but that's because they're young. And if you look carefully, you can see that their horns are actually pretty small in comparison with a big adult ram, but we don't have an adult ram here. There is one actually, though, in front of us on the road. Now, those rams there with horns that size, you see him there just disappearing behind the bushes. That was another nyala that went the other way. They are fighting a lot at this time of year, Kendra. They are in what we call the rut, and that's their kind of time of mating. And that means that they are fighting all the time over trying to keep territory, and, very like the waterbuck eventually, trying to keep a harem of females together and fighting off the other males, so that they can have lots of wives. And they only have wives for this time of the year, and then they don't have wives anymore for the rest of the year. So yes, they do fight a lot. And Kendra, if you want to know if males fight over females, or if they use their horns to fight, all you have to do is check, do the females of the same species have horns? Because if they do, well, you can be fairly sure that they use those horns to defend themselves against predators. But if they don't, then you can be fairly sure that the males use them only to fight each other. All right, wasn't that wonderful? What a brilliant start to our drive. 4 different species in one spot and a very bright sun shining on my face. We're going to try and find those lions, and while we do that, we're going to send you over to Tristan so that he can say hello. Sorry, couldn't hold it in.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari. Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Craig, aka the Batman, and a special warm welcome to the 3 schools joining us this afternoon. So from me and Batman, we'd like to say hello to Centerville, Kempsville, and Forest View Elementaries. I hope you guys are going to have a wonderful time with us, and I hope you've enjoyed the zebras already and the water buck, and I'm hoping we can find you lots more little things to show you. So myself and Craig are going to go check some of the water holes and see if we can't find some of the big elephants that might be around. At this time of the day, they often come to drink, and so that's where we're heading off to. Right, so without much delay, let's see what we can go and find. We're going to go check an area yesterday where I also had a male and female lion, and I don't think anybody checked here today, so I want to go and see if maybe I can't find a male and female lion that were together here. So we're going to check all the roads around here and just see if we can find any sign of their footprints and where they may have gone. So while we're checking water holes, I also just wanted to do a little check around here to make sure they haven't maybe stayed in the area, because sometimes if it's a male and female or daddy and mommy together, they might stay for a long period of time in the same area. So we're going to just try and see if I can't see where they went from last night. But what is interesting is that with the wind blowing like it is now, you're going to find that a lot of the animals are not going to spend too much time out in the open. They're going to want to try and find somewhere where it's a little bit thicker that they can hide from the wind, especially the ones that have big ears like the elephants, because otherwise they can't hear very nicely. Now we're going to carry on and see if we can't find any signs of these lions or elephants, and while we do that, let's go across to Jamie and see how she's doing exploring the wilderness on foot.
I'm having a wonderful time exploring the wilderness, and not just exploring the wilderness, but sitting with Wildebeest on foot. Now remember how I told you that the animals are a bit more afraid of us when we're on foot? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can actually teach them not to be afraid of you, and also you can reduce the impact that you have on them. So you see how I'm sitting down on this termite mound. Now all of the animals, the way that they talk to each other is mostly through body language. They do make some sounds, but most of what they communicate to each other is done through body language. If they're stressed, if they're angry, if they're scared, anything like that, or if they're relaxed, they communicate by the way that their body language changes. Now what I'm doing is I'm presenting them with a non-threatening body language. So by sitting on the termite mound like we are, I'm sitting. I'm not standing. I'm not looking like I'm paying them any attention. I'm just sitting here minding my own business. And as a result, they're quite comfortable, and you can see all of their heads are down. They're feeding. They're actually not bothered by us at all. And that's one of the ways that we can actually connect with the wildlife, is by changing our body language to give them a message that we're not something scary or we're not something threatening. And gradually, bit by bit, we could actually get closer and closer to them. Although I think we'd really struggle today because it's quite windy. So as I said, they're going to be more nervous than usual. And I'm talking quite happily. I'm not trying to whisper, because sometimes whispering actually makes the animal think that you're trying to sneak up on them. And if I were to change my body language, if I was to crouch down and sort of crawl towards the wildebeest, they'd get a fright. And Reed, you want to know if the wildebeest are dangerous? No, not at all. They're not dangerous to me. If I were to get up now and walk towards them, they would run away. They're actually a type of antelope. So generally, antelope are not dangerous. The only situation where an antelope might be dangerous is if you trapped it in some way. So if you cornered it in a place where it couldn't get away, or if you made it too tame to the point that you could touch it, if you got it too used to a human being, because then it would still be wild and it could kick, but it's not as frightened of human beings. So people have learned their lesson the hard way by sort of taming things like antelope, that it can actually be quite dangerous. But in this situation, not at all. They haven't been raised by hand. They're not used to people. So if I got up and walked towards them, they would just scatter off and run away. But there are some dangerous animals out here. Something like a buffalo or an elephant would be dangerous. Now, Jessica, you want to know why the animals are afraid of me. Well, they're not afraid of me at the moment, but they would be if I got too much closer. And all animals have a certain, wild animals that is, have a certain fear of people on foot. And that is years and years and years of evolution teaching them that human beings are actually something quite scary, something that will hunt them. And this is going centuries back to when human beings would hunt these animals for food. We don't do that here, and the animals have become far more trusting because of that, because we don't ever hurt the animals. They've learnt that they don't need to be afraid of us, but there's still that natural instinct that says, ooh, there's a human being, and they recognize our shape just in the same way they'd recognize the shape of a lion. In the same way that they'd be nervous of a lion, they're nervous of us because they see us as predators. And that's something that we don't want to abuse or force. We don't want to scare them in any way. We're just sitting quite comfortably and watching them as they move about. And a lion could do exactly the same thing. A lion could be lying right here on this termite mound or in the shade, and as long as it's lying down, and as long as the antelope can see it, they won't be too bothered. And that's why often when you see antelope around, it doesn't mean that there's no lion or no leopard or no predator. It just means that the antelope know where the predator is and they're not afraid of it, because they know that a leopard or a lion would have to sneak up on them and they'd have to get very close to be able to catch them. So as long as they can see roughly where the predator is, they know they're safe, because they know they can just run away if they need to. It's not the lion or the leopard that they see that will get them. It's the one that they don't see. Now, Lydia, you want to know how strong are wildebeest? They are pretty strong. I mean, they're well over 400 pounds of animal. So they could kick and they could headbutt. So I would say they're very strong. And generally speaking, wild animals are much stronger than we think they are, and actually much stronger than human beings, just sort of pound for pound. And that's because they have to be. They do a lot of running, they do a lot of walking. They're very strong creatures, and even something small, like one of our smaller antelope, is much stronger than we actually realize sometimes. It has a lot of strength in it because it's a wild animal, and it needs to be strong in order to survive. It needs to be able to run fast and jump and duck away from predators. So the wildebeest are actually quite strong. And what they're doing at the moment is they're staying out in the open area, because there are lions around this particular spot. We saw them this morning. So by staying out in the open, they're ensuring that they can actually see if there's anything trying to sneak up on them. So they're going to stay in this open clearing. Morgan, yes, wildebeest horns are very, very strong. Now, an antelope's horn is not like an antler. An antelope's horn is made of solid bone. So if you look at your arms, a wildebeest horn is probably about as thick as your arms, possibly even more so, and that's solid bone. That's not even, just a little parts of your wrist or your arm. That's proper solid bone. That's probably about this thick. So it's really, really strong, just as strong as your bones are, that are able to withstand quite a bit of force. So wildebeest horns are very strong, but sometimes they can break, just like you can break a bone. So hands up if you've ever broken a bone and had to have it put in a cast. It happens. Sometimes people break bones. I've broken my elbow, I've broken my wrist, I've broken a couple of different things. So it does happen. And once it does break like that, unfortunately for the wildebeest, that's it. If it's completely broken, then it won't grow again. If it snaps off, that's it. Because it's living bone, so it gets very badly damaged if it's broken like that. Not that common to see with wildebeest, because their horns are quite a practical shape. You know how if something's quite compact, it's very strong? Whereas for something long and thin, let's say like like an impala horn. An impala horn's much longer and thinner. That's going to break much more easily than something shorter and thicker, like a wildebeest horn. So you don't often see wildebeest with broken horns, and chances are the way that they've broken it is by clashing with each other. Probably males fighting with other males, because usually the females don't really fight with each other. They've got no real reason to fight. Unless they're trying to protect their babies or protect themselves from a predator, it's the males who fight, because they need to fight so that they can mate with the females, so that they can pass on their genes, rather than another male having the opportunity to do so. Sadie and Mia, you are both wondering what wildebeest eat. The answer to that is grass. Wildebeest eat grass, and they quite like short grass as well. They like to eat, if I show you here, this isn't a very good example because it's not very yummy at the moment. But if we have a look at some of the grass at my feet, wildebeest are going to go for these parts over here, not the long stems that are growing up, the parts of the plant that they use for reproduction, for making more grass. They're not going to really like that so much, but they've got very nimble lips, and they'll go after these bits of grass, because these are the best bits. Because if I pull that out there, how many of you have ever chewed on grass before? That's the nicest bit in there. That's the bit with all of the good stuff of the grass. So there we go. That's what the wildebeest are after. And they're grazers, so they only ever really eat grass. Not so nice anymore because it's the dry season and the grass is starting to die. I wonder what Tristan's up to and how his checking of all of the water holes is going.
I am indeed, and so far I haven't found any animals yet. I'm looking all over the place and looking for fresh footprints, but we so far have come up blank. But we are heading slowly but surely towards a different waterhole. I just checked one now, and there wasn't anything there. There was just a bird sitting close to the edge, and that bird then flew away, so there wasn't really much at that waterhole. And it's sometimes like that. Some of the waterholes are busier than others, and so you've got to keep going and keep checking. But like I said, this time of the day is the best time to be looking at waterholes. It's been a little bit warm, and so the animals get thirsty, and then they have to come down in the afternoon to get a drink. The one thing is though about today is that it's not very hot. Normally when it's hotter, that makes the animals then go to water to try and get a little bit of water into their system so that they don't get dehydrated and then get a little bit ill. It's like us, if you don't drink water, then you're going to get a headache and you're not going to feel very well, and so the animals are the exact same. Now hopefully they will come out for us somewhere along here, because it's been a bit quiet this afternoon. So, Jessica, you're wondering what the weather is like? I would imagine that you mean right now and not all the time, but if we say in terms of all the time, well, South Africa is in the northeastern corner where we are now, means that we get a summer rainfall. So our summer is the opposite to your summer, because we're on the other side of the world. And so our summer is in sort of October, November, December, January, February. That is when we have our summer. And then we have our winter now. So we don't get any rain now. So the temperature during the day is normally on average between sort of, I would say, 60 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit in the day, and then at night it can get a little bit colder. But what I want to show you quickly before we carry on, Craig, can you see that track over here on my right hand side? I don't know if you can see it over there. There we go. There's a big footprint that you can see. Now it's not very clear, but those are footprints for a lion. Now I'm going to show you quickly what it looks like when I get off the vehicle so you can see the track. Are we on this one here, Craig? Okay, so here is the foot, like this. I'm going to do a big circle around it so that you can see. Now the toes are over here, 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 and over here, and then the back of the foot is here. Now, the reason I know it's a lion is because of its size. It's very, very big. So this is for a male lion, and this is the male lion that we saw yesterday that I was trying to find. So if I put my hand next to it, look at the size of that. It's the same size as my hand. It is very, 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 very big. The other reason why we know it's a lion is because it doesn't have any claws on the front here, because the lion's claws are tucked inside their feet so that they don't get blunt or get sort of dull and not able to then catch their food. And then at the back we have 1, 2, and 3 lobes that tells us this is a lion. So this was from yesterday. I haven't found any fresh tracks from today, but we are looking around to see. But isn't that amazing how big their feet are? And that just shows you they need those big feet to be able to catch large animals like the buffalo or even like the zebra that James showed you. But let's carry on and see. Maybe we get lucky and we can find where these lions went last night, and that we can actually then show you what a lion looks like in real life. And this male lion, he was following a mommy lion, so he was trying to sort of chase her around, and that mommy lion is not a lion that we know. We don't know where she comes from. So it was a big mystery yesterday, and we were trying to solve it. Oh, there we go. Look at that, Craig. We've spotted something that the lions like to eat. So in front of us is one of the most beautiful animals we have here. It's called a kudu, and a kudu is our largest antelope that we see in this area. So it's the biggest antelope we get, and it has big stripes on it. And do you see how big its horns are? Now hopefully it's going to come out for us. I'm going to try go a little bit more forward so we can see its beautiful horns, because it has amazing horns. And the record length for those horns is 6'2", which is my height. Can you imagine me standing on top of that kudu's head? Wouldn't that be funny? But amazing how big those horns can actually get. Hopefully he's not going to run away. A kudu sometimes is a little bit shy, so we're going to try and just sneak up on him a little bit. Just see, there's some mommy kudus coming out. Now I'm going to just stay here, because the mommy kudus, if they're around, then the daddy kudu will come out. So there's mommy and there's baby kudu, and look how big their ears are. Do you see how big their ears are? That's so that they can hear what's going on, because kudus like to be in very, very, very thick bush. They like to sit behind the trees and bushes, and then they can stay there and they can stay nice and hidden so that the predators like the lions can't see them. But the problem with that is that it's very difficult to see. When you stand behind a tree, you can't see what's going on, and so you need very big ears to be able to listen to what is going on, so that if a predator does come, you can hear them rather than see them. So that's why they have such large ears. And you see, look how they're using the ears to listen to what's going on. You see? And then once they know that everything is safe, they can then move off a little bit. And look how well they can hide. That's why they like to be in these areas with lots of trees, because they hide very, very well. Their coloration is perfect for getting behind the trees and disappearing. And we call that camouflage. Now, camouflage is very, very useful for a lot of the animals in Africa. You'll find the antelope like this, as well as the predators, all have some kind of camouflage. Now, my friend James has managed to find us something that is very well camouflaged and that likes to eat these kudus.
Oh, they do like to eat kudus, everybody, and we are so very lucky to have found them. This is the Nkuhuma Pride. Look at those huge teeth. This is a beautiful pride of lions, and it's the pride of lions that we see most often here. And they're so tired. Lions are always tired, you know. They sleep for 20 hours of the day. Oh, it's very special to find them. Now, I'd love to say that I found them, but, you know, Tristan found them this morning, and then Fergus, who's on camera today, very sharp eyes, he spotted them this afternoon. Elijah, you want to know if the baby lions would attack? Well, if you irritated them enough, they might, but not now. Most animals here, even big lions, will try and run away from you before they will attack. Everything out here just about is afraid of us as human beings. Why, you might ask? We're not very scary. Well, to animals, we are very scary. And that's mainly because, you know, for a long, long time, since human beings have been around, we've been hunting animals. And so they don't know that we're slower than them and weaker than them. They just think that we are predators. And so they're scared of us. But in the car, which we are now, obviously, we're sitting in our vehicle, they're not so scared of us because we don't stand up in the car. And because we don't stand up in the car, they're just not quite so scared of us as they would be if we were on foot. So those baby lions, Elijah, are not going to get up and attack us. You don't need to worry about that, which is lucky. Neela, you're looking at the answer to your question there. You say, do female lions have manes? No, they don't. Look, there's a female lion, and she doesn't have a mane, does she? Only the males have got manes, and for those of you who don't or struggle to remember things like that, remember, of course, normally only men have got beards. And so it's the same with lions. A lion has a beard in at least a mane in much the same way that a human being has got a beard. Look at the little ones playing. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the oldest ones in that little group should be just over a year old, and the younger ones just under a year old. The youngest, there's one very young one, well, very-ish young one. It will be a year old in July. And the very older cubs, those are young cubs there, I think they were born in May. They must be a year old now. Isn't that nice? Them all with their legs up. And you know, so often when we see lions at this time of the day, it's really quite boring because they're normally asleep. But these guys are playing and they're just waking up slightly. Oh, and you want to know how sharp their teeth are? Well, they're not as sharp as, say, a house cat's teeth. But they're much heavier and they're much stronger. And their jaws are much more powerful, and that means that they actually could do much more damage than a house cat's teeth. And so, while they're not quite as sharp, needle sharp as a house cat's teeth, they are very, very powerful. And, well, how sharp would I say? I'm trying to think of something like a pencil, basically. You know how when you've got a pencil and you've been writing, say, half a page, and then it's a little bit blunt and you think about sharpening it, well, that's probably about how sharp a lion's teeth are. But as they get older, the teeth get blunter and blunter. Jeremy, you say, why is it sleepy? Well, the best way for me to describe that to you, Jeremy, is to say, well, you know how after you've had a lot to eat, a huge meal, you've had an enormous meal, you sometimes get a little bit sleepy and you want to go and have a bit of a lie down. It's a little bit like that for the lions, except that they don't eat what we eat. So they don't eat what we call a good, balanced, varied diet. They only eat meat. And because they only eat meat, what it means is that they don't have a lot of energy in the diet. It's difficult for them to make enough energy from their food to be active all the time. And so, while I know this is quite difficult for you guys to understand, because I know you're still little, but you will understand it one day, because they only eat meat, and they don't eat things like fatty foods, or even things like sweets and chocolates, which might give you a little bit of energy briefly, although they're not very good for you. It means that they're tired quite a lot of the time. And if you look at any carnivore around the world, a pure carnivore, in other words, a pure meat eater, you're going to find that they are tired quite a lot as well. And I'm sure those of you who have got dogs and cats at home will know how much they sleep. Well, that's because it's just quite difficult for them to make enough energy to be active. And when I say make energy, your body is always working to make energy to help you do the things that you have to do. Now, Manana, you're wondering how big these lions are, and that's a very good question, of course, because you can't really tell from your screen there how big they are. That big female there who's now fast asleep, look at that. The big female who is fast asleep there, probably weighs in the region of 120 kilograms, which in pounds is about, let's say multiplied by 2.2, we've got about 260 pounds plus minus. That's what she weighs, so she's huge. I'm just going to quickly talk on the Game Drive radio to help someone else come and see the lions. Go ahead. I'm just quickly listening and then I'll talk to you again. Okay, copy that. Now, I think we'll probably spend a little bit longer with him. Oh, I'll tell you what I do want to show you. Can we go to the one on the left, the lioness on the left? It looks like she's got a blind eye. Ooh, look at that. See that, everybody? It looks like her eye there is not so good. It's got a film over it. Of course, now she's closing it. And Liam, you're wondering how old these lions can get before they die, I guess. Liam, lions don't get very old, you know. They probably would be lucky to get to 10 years. 12 years is a pretty good age. Anything above 12 is really very good indeed. For a male. For the females, maybe 2 years more than that. So maybe the females normally live to about 12, and then sometimes to 14, and sometimes a little bit older than that. But the oldest lion in this area was 18 when he died, apparently, and that's very, very old for a lion. And I'm not sure about the oldest female. So they can live for some time, but yeah, not very long. And they will live longer in a zoo situation. And although I know it can seem often quite cruel to have animals in zoos, the reason they live longer is because, of course, there's nothing to attack them, whereas out here there is always something. There's always a slightly stronger, younger male lion coming to cause trouble and try and take your territory, or if you're a female, well, you've still got to hunt all the time, and eventually you just get too old to hunt properly. Fast asleep now. Now, Kedrick, you're wondering how long a lion sleeps for each day. Kedrick, they can sleep for up to 20 hours of the day. Now, I don't know if you know how many hours there are in a day, but there are 24 hours in a day. So they sleep for up to 20 of those 24 hours. Isn't that amazing? That is a very long time to be fast asleep, don't you think? You, as a young human being, probably sleep between 9 and 10 hours of the day, and when you get a bit older, you'll sleep for much less than that, probably sort of 8 hours if you're lucky, although you live in America, which means you'll probably have to work very hard to survive, so you'll probably only have about 4 hours. Oh, look, here comes a cub. Ethan, that's a very good question. I don't know that I know the answer to your question. You say, why are their eyes yellow? Well, they're not always. They're sort of sometimes greeny and sometimes orangish. But that colour is obviously effective for them in terms of reflecting enough light out of the eye, so protecting the... Oh, she's trying to suckle. Is much too old to be suckling. Much, much too old. There will be no milk in that female. Trying to get some milk out because he's feeling a little bit hungry. So those eyes are helpful to, the colour of eyes, it depends very much on the amount of light that there is, and whether the light will damage the eye or whether there's not enough light. And you'll find that the colour is just obviously that yellow and orange colour is best for reflecting and absorbing as much light as possible, I think. That's very interesting what we're watching there, because you should be completely weaned. Caitlin, you say they're the top of the food chain. Yes, they're definitely the top of the food chain, Caitlin. Nothing else threatens a lion except a very big clan of hyenas. Spotted hyenas have big conflict and big fights with lions, and so sometimes they will be the top of the food chain, depending on how many there are. But largely, yes, it is the lions that are the top of the food chain, and nothing will give them any trouble at all. They're much bigger than all the other predators. Dominique, I think your question is, do lions have venom? Is that right? Dominique, lions don't have venom, no. They don't kill with venom. There are no mammals that kill with venom. That's a very interesting question, because it's the second time we've had it from the schools over the last few days, and it's quite interesting. They don't have venom. Only reptiles, as far as I know, have venom. Some fish have venom. I don't think there are any birds that have any venom. Obviously, lots of insects have a little bit of venom in them. And what about frogs? Frogs have got venom. So frogs and reptiles and fish can make venom, but birds and mammals, I don't think they can. Certainly lions cannot make any venom. They don't kill with venom. They kill purely... Let's look at that big jaw open there. They kill purely with their teeth and their strength. They're very, very powerful animals. So they don't need any venom either to protect themselves or to kill their prey. Now, Ruth, I probably should have told you this before, but you say, how many cubs are there? Ruth, in this pride, there are 6 cubs. And I don't think we can see them all, but there are 6 of them. And I must say, it's very lovely to have them with us again. We haven't seen them for some time. And in that great carpet of lions, and all around here, there'll be 6 cubs, and there are 5 lionesses in the group. And Jameson, you're wondering why they're so close to each other. Jameson, it's because they like each other. They're friends with each other. And they will always be close to each other, these lions. They like to be close to each other. It's one of the major features of lions is that they form these prides, what we call prides. That's what a group of lions is called. And because they form prides, they're always close to each other. But the males are not always. You know, the males will move away eventually. They will be chased away by their fathers. And they will have to go and live on their own for a little while. And then they might join up with some other males and start a pride, or not start a pride, but take over a pride of their own. And then they do still spend a lot more time on their own than any other of the females. Parson, you're wondering if the girls hunt. Yes, they do. They hunt hugely. They are very successful and very effective hunters. And this pride likes to hunt buffalo. That's their favorite thing. They really like to hunt buffalo. And sometimes they hunt smaller stuff. I'm sure they catch quite a few impala, which we saw earlier, maybe the odd nyala. But buffalo is really the thing that they like to eat the most. Now, there are no males here because the males are somewhere else at the moment. Now, Elijah, you want to know if these lions would catch an elephant, if they would hunt an elephant. Elijah, yes, sometimes, not in this area. It very seldom happens here. There's too much else that is much easier to kill than elephants here, and so normally it's buffalo or impala or nyala, kudu, those things you saw with Tristan. They will definitely be eaten by lions like this. But elephants, very seldom. And you normally need an enormous group of lions or pride of lions to take out an elephant, because an elephant, of course, can weigh in excess of 10,000 pounds. So they are enormous creatures. Here comes the other cub. Kenyon, you're wondering how fast a lion can run. Pretty fast, Kenyon, probably at about 50 miles an hour, if they have to, which is pretty quick, but that's a female. I don't think the males are quite as fast, but the males are very, very strong. Now, of course, it's very difficult to work out really how fast a lion can run, so the guess is about 50 miles an hour. But unlike with a car that you do a speed test with, you can put it on a road and drive it, you can't really tell a lion to run in a straight line and then measure how fast it's running. So it's quite difficult to figure out really how fast they are. Hello, Liana, you're wondering if they always sleep together. Well, this pride does, yes, absolutely. Not all the males, though. The males of this area, which are called the Birmingham boys, there are 4 of them, they don't always sleep together. They have to patrol a very large territory. And because they're patrolling all the time, they don't really have time to stay with each other all the time. But this pride will normally sleep together unless the females are off hunting. And sometimes they might go off hunting and they might be unsuccessful. And then they will leave the cubs behind and they'll sleep on their own, and these cubs will sleep on their own as well. But the cubs will always be together and the adults will almost always be together. Alright kids, we're going to say goodbye to you. I hope you have a very wonderful day at school. It is Friday, so you'll have the weekend to look forward to, and of course you must be very nearly getting to your summer holidays. So I hope you have a lovely day at school. We're going to enjoy the rest of our safari with these lions and see what else Tristan and Jamie get up to as well.
Well, welcome back everyone, and that is the end of our school drive for the afternoon, and time now to see what else we can go and find. Now, we've had very little luck checking all of our waterholes. We've had no sort of sign of elephants or anything like that, and so we're slowly but surely winding our way to the west to try and see if I can't find the wild dogs that Jamie had this morning. So that's the plan for this afternoon, and that's where we're going to try and head. But I want to get there a little bit later, just in case they're still sleeping now, because I know they had that meal this morning, and generally wild dogs will kind of sleep it off and they wait until it gets a little bit cooler in the afternoon, the sun gets a bit lower before they'll start actively hunting. So I'm waiting just to get out a little bit later to them, and so in the meantime just sort of driving around and seeing what else we can find. I'm checking this western side to see if I can't find that elephant herd where the female was showing signs of giving birth. And there was so far nothing. She went into Arathusa the other day when I was on the walk, so some of you have been asking whether or not I've seen any signs, and we haven't seen anything further from when they went into Arathusa. I think they continued west from there, so I just wanted to check around here and see if maybe they hadn't come back towards Djuma side, but so far no sign. The other interesting thing is I cannot find a single footprint for that male and female lion from yesterday. So the Birmingham boy and that unidentified female still have no idea where they went from that block. We walked around there yesterday afternoon, couldn't find them, and I've just done a loop around that same area and I cannot find a single track coming out of there. So I don't know if maybe they crossed during the day yesterday and somebody drove over the tracks, or what the situation is, but this afternoon, or this morning and this afternoon, there is no sign. So Jamie says she found some of them heading south in the morning. Okay, well that's interesting. Now, she's definitely not the Nkuhuma female or Amber Eyes, because I know a lot of you said it looked like her, but it can't have been her, because Amber Eyes was seen yesterday with the Nkuhumas. I checked with all the guides that saw her. There was most definitely 5 adult lionesses, and the one that was looking quite pregnant was Amber Eyes apparently. And so this morning when we had the Nkuhumas, and now with James, I think there's only the 4 females, and Amber Eyes is definitely not amongst them. So it wasn't her mating yesterday, that's for sure. She was with the Pride yesterday morning and yesterday afternoon and last night, so she's definitely the one that has gone off on her own. But in terms of that mating couple, I still think it must be a Torchwood lioness. That's my gut feeling, is that it's one of them. But the fact that they headed south is quite interesting, because I would have thought she was going to drag that male in a northeasterly direction back into Torchwood and Buffelshoek, trying to get back closer towards her sort of Pride area. But it seems like she's happy to carry on back towards the south, and I wonder if it's because the sticks are so sort of localized at the moment, given that that one female has those cubs, that she's quite happy to walk around that sort of southern section without too many worries. Now, also just taking a turn past the brown ivory, just in case shadows may be here. We know that she left her cub here a few days ago, and no one's really found any tracks for her coming back to fetch the cub. So I'm just checking around. You never know. Maybe she's here somewhere lurking about, and that she's in these thickets. So we're just going to check here as well, while we kind of meander our way to the west. And while we do that, I believe Jamie is also meandering, but on her 2 legs.
I am meandering, and in our meanderings we have found a grasshopper sitting on, can you guess? Can you guess which plant it's sitting on? That is correct, it is sitting on a Weltheria, that James describes as the gift that keeps on giving. And at this point, at this time of year, basically the only plant that still continues to yield insect sightings for us. I'm trying to find a blade of grass that I can use to point out this particular grasshopper. Very cool looking one. I would say probably not fully at its adult stage yet. I think there's a chance this grasshopper might still go through one more molt. Oopsie, sorry. I stood on the WildEarthTV. That did not help matters at all. An interesting camouflage approach. It looks far more geared towards sitting on dry grass than it does on a WildEarthTV. And it definitely sticks out more than some of the other grasshoppers that we've seen. And there's been a definite decline in the number of insects that we're finding. There's a certain, that happens. It's the dry season. It's going to get harder and harder for us to start to find smaller things like this grasshopper. So we'll take advantage of every moment that we get with them. You can see there's the powerful jumping legs. I don't know what makes me say that it's not fully grown. It just doesn't look completely in its adult phase yet. I think that one that we saw... Oh no, sorry, that was a mantid. That was a mantid that Herbie found. I think there's still one or two more insects that are going through the beginnings of their life cycle just quickly before we reach that final point of the dry season. And it's very noticeable. Most of the plants, except for the wealth areas, are dying off. The grass has gone brown in a matter of weeks, actually. Not even about 2 weeks. The grass has gone from green to brown, and it becomes more and more difficult for the animals to find the food that they need. It's going to be interesting to see how this dry season plays out with the animals after the drought that we had last year. Now we've had quite a bit of rain, but who knows exactly whether or not it is enough to sustain the animals. A certain number of deaths is inevitable during the dry season. Any weak animals, any animals that might have been ill beforehand, the dry season is the hardest time for them because there's just not very much nutrition for, especially the grazers. The grazers are the ones that struggle the most. And speaking of grazers, or at least herbivores, I've got a quiz for you all, because I don't think we often talk about this. I've got a pile of dung over here. I want you to tell me what it is. It's very fresh. Very, very fresh. And I wonder, it's quite a lot of it. I wonder if you can tell me what made this particular pile of dung. Now that I've moved all of the grass out of the way. Who dung it? I believe was the old name for these dung quizzes. The very, very distinctive shape and size. It's quite small. And if I break it open, very, very grassy. Largely grass-based. A couple of plants in there as well. And quite coarse in texture. So not fine, but coarse. So what on earth left that pile of dung behind? See if you can work that one out. I don't think I've ever asked this particular, or if I have, it's been a good year or so, possibly even more, since I quizzed this particular animal's dung. Not an easy one, actually. It's also got quite a distinctive colour. And often people find our obsession with piles of dung relatively peculiar. But it does tell us a huge amount about the animals, what they've been eating, what their diet is now based on, how that changes at certain times of the year, which way whether like with elephants, for example, they're focused on grass, or if perhaps they're now basing their diet on leaves and bark. Peaheart, it is not a giraffe. It's not a bad guess. A giraffe tends to be slightly smaller, quite a bit finer, and more scattered, because of course giraffe dung falls from a great height, which creates that scattering effect, and you get it sort of scattered off often 2 meters apart from each other. So if I find some giraffe dung, then I'll show you exactly what I mean by the scattering. It covers an enormous area, and sometimes you see it clumped together, but not all that frequently, whereas this particular animal you usually find its dung in clumps like that. Our beard, not a rhino, definitely a little bit too small for a rhino. We might have a slightly bigger pile, unless this was a rhino that was roughly about this big. And even then, its dung would probably be bigger. So not a rhino, although right texture, right train of thought. Oh goodness, you lot are far too quick for us. Kinky Beth, it is indeed a pile of warthog dung. Very fresh pile of warthog dung. We probably interrupted their snuffling around here. And I'm looking to see if I can see any other signs of warthog, perhaps a track or two. But there's not much on the soil. It might be... No. There's not really much in the way of signs that they've been feeding around here. Perhaps the slight cropping of the grass. But this isn't particularly fresh. It's still dry. So there we go, warthog, a sounder of warthog, quite possibly the ones that we see on quarantine open area, but they've obviously ducked away as soon as they heard us coming. Not exactly silent at the moment. Everything crunches. As we walk along the paths that we're walking along, everything goes crunch underfoot. Okay, let's go and find out. I heard an intriguing update about Tristan searching for elephants and an elephant giving birth. I'm not quite sure. Let's go and see how his search for them is going.
Well, Jamie, not very well at this stage. Yet to find any sort of fresh tracks for elephants. I just was on the hope that maybe they came back from the west towards our sort of southwestern boundary on Djuma, but so far no real sign of any elephants. I did have tracks for Shadow, which seemed to have come back to where her cub was a few days ago, which I think was about 2 days ago now, that they were around, and so those tracks look like they kind of went in and they were going east a bit, and then I lost them going towards the main road, so I think she might have crossed back onto Hofmann's, which is a bit unfortunate, but they look like they were from this morning sometime. Early this morning. They're on top of most of the nocturnal animals and on top of things like impalas and that, but there are lots of ant trails over the top, so when the ants move around they go over the top of the track and it makes these little cut lines on them, so we know that they're not from now this afternoon, but I did follow them. They definitely didn't go back northwards, and I didn't find any track for the actual cub itself, so maybe she just came and spent some time with the cub and then has just left it again and has gone off hunting. So I did look around, checked in a bit in the sort of drainage area and the Tambuti thicket, but alas, no sign of any of Shadow or the cub itself. Now the cub is a little bit skittish, so it would be a bit difficult without Mom being around. The cub is in all likelihood going to run away from us and try and sort of get into a thicket and hide. She's not going to really allow us to view her without her Mom. When Mom is around, then she's a little bit more relaxed and comes towards where Shadow is. But she loves this Tambuti thicket. You often find Shadow's tracks going in on the right hand side here, and I walked around there with Rexon the other day and it was really so thick in there, it's almost impossible to see what's going on, so it's not an easy place to check. Right, we're going to cross into Arathusa and go and check around Red Dam and see what the update is on these wild dogs. And while we do that, let's go back to James with the beautiful Nkuhuma Pride.
Yes, here we are, still with the Nkuhuma Pride, everybody. The school drive is a thing of the past, and so therefore it was beholden on me to tell you that on Sunday evening we are going to be having a fireside chat, and that fireside chat is going to be tinged with a certain amount of melancholy and sadness as we pay tribute to our lost Queen Karula. We are not going to pass any judgment as to what has happened to her, but clearly she doesn't show any signs of returning to us from whatever fate has befallen her. And so we're going to talk about her and share our memories and share our impressions of certainly what seems to be one of the most successful leopards in the great history of the Sabi Sand. So you can join us for the last 15 minutes of the sunset safari on Sunday, and even that lion looks a bit sad by what I'm saying there. And then if you would like to, you can immortalize Karula in your wardrobe by buying a t-shirt, and the link for that t-shirt is on the blog that went out today. So just go to WildEarthTV, click on the blog, not WildEarth.tv, sorry, go to WildSafariLive.com, I think, and click on the blog,
I think I've got these websites correct, and there you will find a link to buy the t-shirt if you would like it, to immortalize Karula in your wardrobe. And it's really quite a nice drawing of a picture that your Stanhauser took of the Queen some years back. I'm just going to wait for Final Control to give me some confirmation as to exactly which website the blog is on. I'm pretty sure it's WildSafariLive.com, and then you just click on the blog. Apparently, no, you won't get that. You can just go to blog.wildearth.tv, blog.wildearth.tv, or you'll find it on our Facebook page, the Safari Live Facebook page. So please join us then. I'm sure many of you have many, many memories of Karula. Elena, you want to know the difference between a male and a female lion and how we tell? Well, when they're adults, it's very simple because the males have got manes. They've got those great big iconic shaggy manes that cover their heads. Oh, you're just 7 years old. No wonder you're a little bit confused about it. So if you've got a big male, well, then he has got a big shaggy coat of hair around his head and his neck, and it goes down onto his chest. It's a little bit like a beard. So it's a bit like, you know that men have beards and women don't have beards. Well, most women don't have beards. It's the same with lions. The males have got a big shaggy mane and the females don't. Sometimes the females have got manes and sometimes the males don't, but that's very, very unusual. The males are also much, much bigger. It's so nice that they're doing something, you know. Most of the time, lions, of course, do very little at all. And I'm much appreciative of the fact that this little cub is playing with a stick. I think that's very kind of it, and I hope that it continues playing with the stick all afternoon. Now, NASCAR for Life, which I really do enjoy your Twitter handle. I'm not sure why, but I do. You say, will these cubs stay here when they finish nursing? Do you mean in the Pride, or do you mean just sort of around here for now? Because they will stay in the Pride. They should have stopped nursing some 6 months back, and I'm not sure why they still think it's acceptable for them to be trying to nurse. But NASCAR for Life, they will stay in the Pride, the females, for the rest of their lives. And the males will be tossed out when they're about 2.5 to 3, or between 2.5 and 3.5 years. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, of the 8 cubs that we had, only 3 were males, and I think both of the ones that succumbed to white muscle disease were males, I think, and I think there's only 1 male cub amongst the 5 amongst the 6 that we have here. Isn't that very sweet watching them just playing there? That's wonderful. Just great stuff. Looking at us, chewing their stick, playing with each other, and just like kids, they don't want to have an afternoon nap, they want to play. It's very sweet. It's so nice to see them still playful as opposed to having assumed the playlessness of the adults. And of course, the reason they lose their playfulness is, or when they lose their playfulness, is when they hit puberty. Alrighty, let's head across to Jamie Patterson, who seems to have found an enormous pile of evil-smelling substance.
It's not evil smelling at all. It actually smells quite nice, I would say, on the basis that it is elephant dung and not predator scat. But it just sort of serves to enhance what we were talking about earlier with the warthog dung and why we're so dung obsessed. It tells us a lot about the animals, and we can use it combined with observation to learn a little bit more about what's happening in the world of the animals. And this is a really nice example of that, because it's a pile of elephant dung. There's still grass in it, naturally. And by the way, for our new viewers, I'm touching elephant dung with my bare hands. I would not, absolutely not, do that with predator scat. But elephant dung is just grass. And I'll wash my hands afterwards when I'm done with this walk, and actually probably go and scrub the pepper ticks off me. But we've also got the first sign of winter approaching and the change of diet. We've already seen the elephants focusing more and more on feeding off leaves of trees rather than the grasses themselves. And it just goes to show where the change of nutrition sits. Ooh, what are you? You're disgusting looking, which automatically makes you interesting. A grub of some sort. Doesn't look like a maggot. Wait, come back, don't go away. I want to know what you are. Here we are. I guess it could potentially be the larvae of a very small species of dung beetle. Possibly. What's interesting about that is that I think its back end is larger than its front end. I think the front end was the narrower part. I don't know what that was. A grub of some sort. Oh, look, we've actually got a serious battle playing out here. I'm just going to flip this, and we can expose what's going on below. Oops, that was easier said than done. Look at this. So we've got... Oh!
Sorry.
Sebastian, where are you going? He nearly fell straight into the elephant dung. You're right.
Yeah.
Slight overbalance there. Our cameramen have to deal with a lot, you know. Well done. Okay, so we've got the microtermes termites that are in the process of cleaning up the rubbish that is a pile of elephant dung. And they actually do a huge cleanup service. It's between them and the dung beetles. Piles of dung are dissected, taken apart, and consumed and returned into the energy cycle in the space of, I wouldn't say a few hours or days, but certainly a matter of weeks. And a pile of elephant dung will be completely disposed of. But what's interesting here is that they are in a battle with ants as well. And I can't quite... They are, look at that. Look over there, that termite. It's like what James had playing out in the tent. They're being overrun by ants that have taken advantage of the hard-working termites, and they've swooped in to come and attack the termites themselves. And the termites are completely outnumbered. And unlike the... Where are they all coming out of? They're coming out from under the ground. They're not like the macrotermes that have fierce and powerful soldiers. These poor workers are completely unguarded, and the only thing they can do or rely upon is their speed. But even then, they are being completely overrun. And these ants are just taking over. And these poor termites are fighting back, but there's no way they can. I mean, this poor one over here is struggling as well. Shame. Legs desperately kicking. They're very similar, I assume, to the scene that you had play out with James when he was in the tent not so long ago. Oh! They're fighting back. And the termites' jaws are slightly stronger than that of the ants, but they're workers, they're not soldiers, they're not built to battle. They're built to break apart the pieces of grass and the pieces of wood and take them back into their homes. And they are being completely overrun. Oh, shame. Poor things. They really don't stand a chance. They've got nowhere to go. Where are the ants taking them? Now, on a completely separate note, looking at this battle playing out, I'm looking to see where the ants are going. Looking at this battle playing out in a pile of dung, Zoe wants to know what the difference is between scat and dung. It's just dung is herbivore based, so animals that eat plants defecate dung. Animals that eat meat defecate, and it is called scat. And omnivorous animals like human beings and baboons and so on, their defecated products are called feces. So it's just a matter of what the diet of the animal is. So in the case of an elephant, it is elephant dung. If it were elephant scat, we would be in deep trouble. It would be utterly terrifying. That would be a very big carnivore to have to face. And speaking of carnivores of different sizes, Tristan has got the smallest.
We do indeed, Jamie, and we're making friends. Our carnivores are coming closer and closer, and I'm quite surprised at how curious this little group is. They've come out of a thicket, and they are no more than, I would say, probably 3 meters from the front of the car, and they come a little bit closer. There you go, you can see where the car is and where the dwarf mongoose is. And normally they're quite shy creatures, they don't really allow us to get too close, but this particular group is happy for us to come out and sort of stay here, and they're all coming, and they've actually walked closer to come and investigate what we're doing and who we are. So there you go, you can see more of them coming out. Hey guys, dwarf mongoose are going to be some of the coolest animals out here. I love how much they interact with one another. There's lots of playing that goes on. Look at these two fighting. Craig, you see them on the right there. There we go. There we go. We're having a bit of a wrestling match. Oh. So you'll find that they'll do this every now and then, and it's more play fighting than anything else. This is not actual fighting that they're doing. They're just having a little bit of a good time together, and they'll practice that and sort of do that, and it'll help when they actually hunt and they are sort of going after prey animals, that if they have to potentially wrestle or bite, and it just helps getting their movement a little bit more honed. And you can see how well they actually camouflage once they get in these thickets. And there we go. Got to groom ourselves, got to make sure we get rid of anything on the tail. So cute, these little things. And they've all, I think, decided that we are not that interesting anymore, because they're starting to scuttle off and away across the road. So there's just this one that is left by the looks of it. All your friends have left you. Yes, talking to you. The rest of them are at the back there, Craig. I think they're going to come out. Oh, there we go. This one should be joining now. The one that we had in the bush is starting to scuttle off into the distance as well. That's about as good a view of a dwarf mongoose as you'll ever get. You can see how busy they are. They're always up to something, and that's why a group of mongoose is known as a business of mongoose, because they seem to always be hustling and bustling around and sort of finding their way through the grass and twitching and looking around and listening. I suppose you have to when you're that size. Not only are you looking for insects and varying other food items, but you also know that there's going to be many predators. Ah, one's just popped out next to us here, Craig. See next to me right here. So just behind my shoulder. There we go. Hey, little guy. Now that is about as relaxed a dwarf mongoose as you're ever going to see. Just decided to go back in now. I may have moved a little bit, unfortunately. But you can hear them talking every now and then. You can also hear that the starlings are making quite a bit of noise as well. Now, most of these dwarf mongoose seem to have disappeared, so I think I'm going to carry on. But that was very cool. It seems like we made friends and managed to get a nice relaxed group of dwarf mongoose. Jamie will be happy. She's been on these missions to try and habituate groups of dwarf mongoose on foot. I think she needs to come here, because these guys were very obliging and very curious of what we were and what we are. Other than that, though, Arathusa is very quiet. We have had no word on the radio from anybody as to our wild dogs. So, no idea where they are, but we're going to just keep driving around until somebody responds to us. Now, Safari Girl, you're wondering how many species of mongoose there are. in this particular area that we are traversing? Well, we get the dwarf mongoose, and then the other sociable mongoose is the banded mongoose, so that's 2. Then we get the slender mongoose, which we find during the day and runs around in either on its own or in a monogamous pair. And then you'll find we get at night 2 other species of mongoose that come out. So we get the Miller's mongoose and we get the white-tailed mongoose. Now, Miller's mongoose is very, 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 very rare here. In fact, in all my time in the Sabi Sands, I've only seen them 3 times, and they look very similar to the white-tailed mongoose, but they've got a black tip to the tail, not a white tip to the tail, and are slightly smaller than what you see on the white-tailed mongoose. So those 2 come out at night, and actually there was one living at Elephant Plains for a long time, and I used to see it when I went back. In fact, I saw it quite a few times, but I never really counted as a lot of sightings because it's the same individual that you keep seeing. So that's always hanging around the Elephant Plains driveway and between Simamili and Elephant Plains itself. So we used to see it there. So there we go, 5 species of mongoose. That's how many we see in this particular area, which is quite a lot. It's not a bad diversity when it comes to mongoose species. Now, we're going to try and see if we can't find somebody who wants to talk to us and tell us what's going on with the wild dogs. While we do that, let's go across to James and his daydreaming lions.
Yes, let's talk about lions, everybody. We've just come around to the other side of the Pride. We've now got pretty much all of them in view, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4 lionesses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubs. Yes, we've got them all. Very, very nice. Marvellous, in fact, to have 10 lions when we haven't seen lions for so very long. And while it must be said that ordinarily at this time of the day we wouldn't be sitting with lions for this length of time, mainly because they'd be fast asleep. These ones aren't. For some reason the cubs are playing, which is great. But also we haven't seen them for so very long that a full day of lions is just what the doctor ordered, as the cliche goes, especially when they are playing with sticks. Debbie, you're wondering if I can tell which one the male is. No, not from here. He will look completely indistinct from the 5 sisters he has. But if you see the back end of the tail, in other words, if you look behind the tail, then you can see absolutely. That's not hard at all. You can definitely see his lion bits, if you like. That's really such a terrible way to put it. I've got a feeling that's him. I don't know why I have that feeling. I've just got a feeling that that's the male. Sky, you say, will the older cubs harass the younger cubs? Yes, you know, they did to start with, but you can see that their sizes are not very different anymore. I mean, you can see, I think we're looking at the youngest one there, and I'm guessing that that's the male. It might not be. But what you can see is that their size is not very different, and so yes, although they might sort of make some sort of attempt at bullying from time to time, and they will definitely sort of dominate at a kill, they're not big enough to really do any damage anymore. They're not able to bully like they would have if, say, that was a brand new cub. So the new cubs, if we are correct and Amber Eyes is giving birth as we suspect, when the new cubs come into the Pride, then absolutely there will be an element of bullying. But by then, of course, these chaps will not be trying to suckle anymore, and so Amber Eyes will be able to suckle her cubs pretty much exclusively, although these guys are trying to suckle, which is a bit odd. But they will only be they will only be introduced to the Pride when they're about 6 weeks old, the new cubs. Isn't that wonderful?
will just tell you that the bushwalk is following up on kudu alarm calls, so we might be very lucky soon to have something interesting there. That is fantastic. A little bit of stick eating. We'll be very interested to know if that... Oh, well, they're two eating sticks now. And the reason, of course, that they aren't a different size from the males was just like it is with human beings. Until they hit puberty, well, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between males and females, but for our cultural, or the cultural way we dress each other up. Now, I am taking great pleasure from this because I'm about to link to Brent, and for the very first time, he doesn't actually have a cat to show you.
100 of them out here. Good afternoon, my name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Dangerous Dave, the delectable dish, on camera today, although we're probably not so delectable. We've been out all day, so you can see we're covered in dust and dirt, but we've had fun exploring, and we're on our way back to see if we can find that female cheetah that we've been seeing for the last little while. And we've just come across this really nice big herd of Topi. And there's the odd Thompson's gazelle in between, and that's always a really good spot to stop and look for a cheetah. It is their favorite food. Now, we were right down on the Tanzanian border this morning, and there are some massive fires in the Serengeti, and those fires are creating some quite spooky lighting this evening. And if we look off to the west and the south, you can see that sort of really hazy, smoke-filled air. Now, don't worry, majority of Africa is a fire climax biome, especially an area like the Serengeti and the Masai Mara. Now, believe it or not, human beings had quite a big hand in making this ecosystem, and it has been managed by people for a few thousand years with fire, to get the best out of the grazing, and coupled with the incredible volcanic soils, the high altitude and high rainfall, and fire have made this incredible ecosystem. Darby, we've lost audio.
Still got on my side.
We've got audio on our side, so I presume it's your side. Yeah, all our audio is working. Not that they can hear us. So are we live? Okay, so we are live. Sorry about that, folks. We're going to try...
Hello everybody, sorry about that. That must be very irritating for poor old Brent, because I've no doubt that he would have had a very snappy rejoinder to my, well, not enjoyment, but astonishment that we had cats and he for the first time didn't have a cheetah chasing a gazelle, or lions hunting a buffalo, or hyenas hunting a buffalo, or all of the above happening all around him at the same time. It really has been quite astonishingly action-packed from that part of the world. And, well, we'll bring you much more of that, and of course the continuation of the saga of the Nkuhuma Pride from Djuma. None of that will change, and in case you are a new viewer, we are expanding the operation up into the Mara. Brent has gone there as an advanced party. He and a couple of the tech guys and a couple of the cameramen are living in, well, what can only be described as fairly difficult conditions up there. And so they're doing a fantastic job setting things up and finding out all about the animals there. And that's why there just are one or two technical glitches, but they are living rough, as it were, and doing a fantastic job keeping things going for us there. And no one is going to leave Djuma. Well, I mean, a couple of us are going up to the Mara, but we will continue with your enjoyment and following of the lions here and the leopards here and all the goings on at Djuma, while we learn the new characters of Safari Live in the Mara. There really is a great deal of stick eating going on here, and I wonder if it isn't something of a symptom of the hunger they're feeling, perhaps, at the moment. They certainly have been also grooming each other a lot. Well, there you can see quite a size difference between that cub and the one behind it. And just the last of the spots that they've got on their heads, they are starting to assume that sort of slightly ugly teenager phase, if you know what I mean. They get a bit lanky. That's great. Well, that's definitely a female, the one facing us. I mean the one with her backside facing us. The other one I think also female. I'll try and identify the male at some stage. Yep, that's definitely a female. So 2 females there. Yeah, Laura, you say you saw the lioness with a bad eye and you want to know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Taylor noticed it first a little while back, and apparently she is going blind, or she has gone blind. There may have been some damage and it's healed, but she does seem to, at least she's seeing in a very milky fashion, she seems to be completely blind in that eye, unfortunately for her. But I don't know what happened. You know, we've spent so little time with these lions of late that it's very difficult to tell you what's happened with any of them. I mean, that is just wonderful, isn't it? A sort of lazy playing, not want to get up too much. Don't want to exhaust themselves too much. It's a very sort of quiet, pleasant afternoon around here. Age, you want to know the floppy-eared female is still alive? Yes, she most certainly is, because all 6 of the cubs that did not succumb to white muscle disease are alive. So I'm sure she is, but I think you might find that her ear has healed. I don't see one with a floppy ear, and I haven't seen one with a floppy ear. So that's quite fun. I'm just going to quickly guide someone in on the Game Drive channel. Go. Negative, you need to come onto the fire break between Mvubu Road and Gari Cut Line. You will see the tracks going south from the crest there. I'm just helping someone get in here. That's interesting, Michael. She might, I don't know. You say, if Amber Eyes is having cubs, will she wait longer to introduce the cubs to the pride than might be expected because of the age difference? I think it's possible. You know, that 6-week period that we talk about is not set in stone. It's not, she doesn't sort of set her calendar at day 1 and at 6 weeks say, right, come on chaps, let's go and meet the rest. It's a gradual introduction. It normally begins any time from 4 weeks, I think. I've certainly seen cubs introduced to the pride from about 4 weeks, and then they will go back to a den and be on their own for a while again. And so it's a sort of gradual process, but round about 6 weeks. So would she take the decision to keep them away from the pride for a little bit longer? She might. I don't think so, though, because in theory these cubs should have stopped suckling, and I'm not sure that she would tolerate them attempting to suckle from her. So I'm not sure how much competition there would be for milk. But, I mean, like I say, it's a bit odd to see them trying to suckle, and so it's possible. Now I wonder, remember we saw Tumba the other day? I don't know if you do remember, but he opened his mouth and you could very clearly see his big teeth coming through. Now, by my reckoning, he's 8 months old, and these cubs are proportionately a bit older for a bigger animal, so I imagine that those are probably their big teeth that you can see, and that their milk teeth have gone. And Tormented Zombie Owl, you were wondering if they do lose their teeth like baby humans. Yes, they certainly do. Apparently all mammals, as far as I know, get milk teeth that will fall out and be replaced by the adult versions. It is just so amazing to see how affectionate they are with each other when there isn't food in the offing. They're the best of friends. Toss a large stake down between them, though, and the friendliness will evaporate immediately. They're just looking around a little bit because of there's the male. That's him there. That's the male. He's just got up. There you can see a quite obvious difference. Oh, am I talking rubbish? Hang on a second. I'm pretty sure that's the male. Unless he's just got a slightly shaggy bottom. No, that's a female, sorry. I apologise. Talking rubbish. As you can see, the light has now changed. The sun just pushing down below the clouds. Well, and turning everything rather precious. In the background, a rain locust going. And it was a black-headed oriole that's calling that made them look up. Alarm calling, but probably at them. That's a really appalling black oriole call. Just stunning. And like I say, most days, once we'd spent this length of time with a pride of lions that wasn't doing a great deal, would probably drive away. But because we haven't seen them for so long, we're going to spend a little bit more time with them. If they don't do much in the next little while, we'll probably move out, can make some space for somebody else, and we maybe come and try and see if we can see them a bit later. But we have had a very, very good day with the Nkuhuma Pride. And, as I said this morning, but maybe you weren't with us, the tracks of this pride headed towards where they terminated when Tristan found them, and the tracks of what we think is Amber Eyes turned round, well, it must be Amber Eyes, turned round and walked back down the same road and then headed into the drainage system just to the north of the Gallagher Pan. So she may well be giving birth there. Now we're going to go from this lion across to what is in front of the lion's face. Watch the focus pull. There we are, with Jamie.
The grass in front of the lion's face is, I assume, what James was referring to. This isn't just any ordinary grass, is it? Look very, very closely. Very closely. And only then will you be able to see what's different about this particular patch of grass, especially when it starts to move across in my direction. This is the most beautiful example of camouflage, and we've been spoiled this year. We've had the flower mantids that look like these beautiful grass flowers. We've had grasshoppers of all shapes and sizes, and now we've got this amazing creature that looks exactly like a blade of grass. Here you go. This is its antenna over here. Its eyes are down here, and it is so perfectly striped in a way that looks like grass, fresh green grass with some drying out brown grass in between. And that I find amazing. I wonder if this is something that it's evolved specifically for this time of year as the grass starts to grow off, because this would be the perfect time to have that kind of camouflage. Half brown and half green. I wonder if I can coax it onto my hand. Probably not, but I'll give it a go. Hello? No. No such luck.